I'm calling this tentatively All Hail the Matriarchy, seriously. In the past several decades, there has been an upsurge in adherence to the narrative that the West, and America in general, that is more than anything else an oppressive patriarchy. This has become the only ideologically fashionable story that public intellectuals and politicians are expected to tell. However, it is my contention that humans, not just Westerners or Americans, have lived in a eusocial, that is, exhibiting cooperative brood care, overlapping generations within a colony of adults, and division of labor into reproductive and non-reproductive groups, matriarchy, for some tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years. Yes, we've been living in a cooperative eusocial matriarchy, and it's quite a good thing that we have. When we ask whether a society or a species is A, primarily dominated by patriarchs, B, primarily dominated by the matriarchs, or C, roughly egalitarian, behavior is a key factor. However, in the heat of all the talking and, let's be honest, shouting about the differences between the sexes, one behavior has been vastly underanalyzed: female mate selection. It is my contention that one of the biggest factors, and maybe the biggest factor responsible for the vast increase of the capacity of the human brain over the past several 100,000 years, and possibly far longer, has been the sexual selective pressure exerted by females on potential mates to exhibit some requisite cognitive capacity, however that judgment was made. Some of the earliest examples of these cognitive requisites might have been the ability to hunt food or build shelter. Later requisites became more complex, further favoring those with high cognitive capacity. This effect, controversial as it may be to say, has accelerated faster in certain populations than in the human population as a whole. The population whose average IQ is the highest among above the world population average, Ashkenazi Jews, has an average IQ somewhere between 110 and 115, whereas the general population's average is 100. When you think about what is known about the values of Jewish society and Jewish women, going back as far as Judaism goes, one thing that is conserved is that intellectual wealth is prized over material wealth. Because Jewish women, more than women in other cultures, have required cognitive impressiveness from their mates, their children's IQs have risen at a higher rate than that of the general population. This effect, compounded generation after generation for thousands of years, largely explains how a population could have seen such a large shift in cognitive ability in such a rapid evolutionary window, an evolutionary blink of an eye, really. The effect of female sexual selection was recently hinted at by Joe Rogan, who mentioned that you make all the people. While this seems like a factual banality, it underlines an important point, which is that for quite some time the majority of human pregnancies have resulted from female consent, and a minority of pregnancies have resulted from rape. I can't give too educated of a guess when the switch came and when we went from a majority rape species to a majority consent species, best guess a few million years ago, but since then we have progressed as a species whose default mode of procreation requires female consent. This is a kind of tangential point, but one that I think is at least a bit valid. When you think about the current fervor around pushing back against racism and the readiness of many of us to burn people at the stake for saying something that could be perceived by someone somewhere as vaguely racist, who gets the biggest pass for being racist? Little old ladies. Little old white grannies who say alarming things about colored folks, or little old black grandmas who still don't trust any white people. We have so much love and appreciation for their overwhelming motherness that we'll usually basically forgive them for being racist while we'll torch the reputations of anyone else who tries it. Okay, now back to the more robust legs of my argument. Now, there will be those who have a tendency to jump on what I've said so far and claim that what I'm saying is that women's main and only use is as sexual selectors. This couldn't be further from the truth. Humans are extremely complex and we each fulfill a multitude of roles. It just happens that one of the roles that women have come to play is the role of genetic selector. They decide, in the vast majority of cases, whose genes will propagate into the next generation. The value of this would be hard to overstate. So the next time you are deftly wielding your silverware, maneuvering food effortlessly into your mouth while reading the closed captioning on the muted television in front of you, and your Looking for someone to thank for the cognitive ease with which you can perform this suite of fairly complex tasks, thank the human females and even pre-human females in your ancestry who cared enough about the fitness of their offspring to require mates who offered a certain level of cognitive ability. I also expect that, in addition to contributing significantly to the recent rapid expansion of the human brain capacity, some of humanity's most recent adaptations, especially those that have high social utility, have been accelerated and maximized by female sexual selection. For example, male aggressiveness has tapered off while male empathy has been on the rise. I would be highly surprised if female sexual selection is not chiefly responsible for the acceleration of these trends. Now, certainly it is true that males have come to dominate many areas of life, including many highly visible and highly indexed markers of success. This has led to the promulgation of the intersectional narrative I mentioned before about the ubiquity of an oppressive patriarchy. But when you put this model inside of a model in which the vast majority of human pregnancies are contingent on the sexual selection and consent of women, and a model in which the most revered members of society are our older matriarchs, the picture begins to balance out considerably, even to tip in favor of female dominance. Now, I don't bring this up in order to complain about it, or to say that we should live in a patriarchy rather than a matriarchy, or that there is anything wrong with women dominating the landscape of human endeavors. I bring it up because no one else seems to be telling this story, and it seems like a fairly obvious story to be telling. Please share this video and discuss this topic with your friends and family. There is a common mass delusion, in effect, across this country, and to some extent across the world. It is not particularly helpful or productive, and I think the sooner that we snap out of it, the sooner we can maximize our human potential. Thanks for your time.